Welcome to the Gospel with the Church Fathers. Today is the Tuesday of the second week of Lent. Thank you for watching, and please share this episode with your family, friends, and on social media. Thank you. Today's Gospel is from St. Matthew, chapter 23, verses 1 through 12, and the commentaries are from St. Jerome, St. Remigius, and St. John Chrysostom. The Gospel. Then spake Jesus to the multitude and to his disciples, saying, The scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. All, therefore, whatsoever they bid you observe, that observe and do. But do not ye after their works, for they say and do not. For they bind heavy burdens and grievous to be borne, and lay them on men's shoulders. But they themselves will not move them with one of their fingers. But all their works they do for to be seen of men. They make broad their phylacteries, and enlarge the borders of their garments, and love the uppermost rooms at feasts, and the chief seats in the synagogues, and greetings in the markets, and to be called of men, Rabbi, Rabbi. But be not ye called Rabbi, for one is your Master, even Christ, and all ye are brethren. And call no man your father upon the earth, for one is your Father which is in heaven. Neither be ye called masters, for one is your Master, even Christ. But he that is greatest among you shall be your servant, and whosoever shall exalt himself shall be abased, and he that shall humble himself shall be exalted. The commentaries. Pseudo Chrysostom. When the Lord had overthrown the priests by his answer, and shown their condition to be irredeemable, forasmuch as the clergy, when they do wickedly, cannot be amended, but laymen who have gone wrong are easily set right, he turns his discourse to his apostles and the people. For that is an unprofitable word which silences one without conveying improvement to another. And to the scribes and Pharisees of whom he is now speaking, heavy burdens not to be borne are the commandments of the law. As St. Peter speaks in the Acts, Why seek ye to put a yoke upon the neck of the disciples, which neither we nor our fathers were able to bear? Acts 15:10. For commending the burdens of the law by fabulous proofs, they bound it, as it were, the shoulders of the heart of their hearers with bands, that thus tied, as though with proof of reason to them, they might not fling them off. But themselves did not in the least measure fulfill them. That is, not only did they wholly, but did not so much as attempt to. Such also are they who lay a heavy burden upon those who come to penitence, so that while men would avoid present punishment, they overlook that which is to come. For if you lay upon a boy's shoulders a burden more than he can bear, he must needs either cast it off or be broken down by it. So the man on whom you lay too grievous a burden of penance must either wholly refuse it, or, if he submit himself to it, will find himself unable to bear it, and so be offended and sin worse. Also, if we should be wrong in imposing too light a penance, is it not better to have to answer for mercy than for severity? Where the master of the household is liberal, the steward should be not oppressive. If God be kind, should his priests be harsh? Do you seek thereby the character of sanctity? Be strict in ordering your own life, and that of others lenient. Let men hear of you as enjoining little and performing much. The priest who gives license to himself and exacts the utmost from others is like a corrupt tax gatherer in the state, who, to ease himself, taxes others heavily. St. John Chrysostom. The Lord had charged the scribes and Pharisees with harshness and neglect. He now brings forward their vainglory, which made them depart from God. Note the intensive force of the words of his reproofs. He says not merely that they do their works to be seen of men, but added all their works. And not only in great things, but in some things trivial they were vainglorious. They made broad their phylacteries and enlarged the borders of their garments. St. Jerome. For the Lord, when he had given the commandments of the law through Moses, added at the end, "And thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thy hand, and they shall be ever before thine eyes." Deuteronomy 6:8. The meaning of which is, "Let my precepts be in thine hand so as to be fulfilled in thy works. Let them be before thine eyes so as that thou shalt meditate upon them day and night." This is the Pharisees misinterpreting, wrote on parchments, the Decalogue of Moses, that is, the 10 Commandments, and folding them up, tied them on their forehead, so making them a crown for their head, that they should be always before their eyes. Moses had in another place given command that they should make fringes of blue in the borders of their garments, to distinguish the people of Israel. Numbers 15:39. That, as in their body circumcision, so in their garments the fringe might discriminate the Jewish nation. But these superstitious teachers, catching at popular favor and making gain of silly women, made broad hems and fastened them with sharp pins, that as they walked or sat they might be pricked, and by such monitors be recalled to the duties of God's ministry. This embroidery, then, of the Decalogue they called phylacteries, that is, conservatories, because those who wore them for their own protection and security. So little did the Pharisees understand that they were to be worn on the heart and not the body. For in equal degree may cases and chests be said to have books, which assuredly have not the knowledge of God. Pseudo Chrysostom. They love the first salutations. First, that is, not in time only before others, but in tone, that we should say with a loud voice, "Hail, Rabbi!" and in body, that we should bow low our head, and in place, that the salutation should be in public. That is, they wish to be called, not to be such. They desire the name and neglect the duties. St. Jerome. It is a difficulty that the apostle against this command calls himself the teacher of the Gentiles, and that in monasteries, in their common conversation, they call one another Father. It is to be cleared thus. It is one thing to be father or master by nature, another by sufferance. Thus, when we call any man our father, we do it to show respect to his age, not as regarding him as the author of our being. We also call men master from resemblance to a real master, and not to use tedious repetition, as the one God and one Son, who are by nature, do not preclude us from calling others gods and sons by adoption. So the one Father and one Master do not preclude us from speaking of other fathers and masters by an abuse of the terms. St. John Chrysostom. Not only does the Lord forbid us to seek supremacy, but would lead his hearer to the very opposite. He that is greatest among you shall be your servant. St. Remigius. Which means that everyone who thinks highly of his own deserts shall be humbled before God, and everyone who humbles himself concerning his good deeds shall be exalted with God.